thingy out here. All right, we are back. That was just a test run. So we want to make sure everybody's listening and watching. All right, now that we got your attention, now you can come back on this live. This is the official live. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and invite everybody back on. Hopefully you guys didn't go anywhere within now and the last 5 minutes. Oh yeah, okay. I'll fall back on. So what's up? Add Paul. Paul wants to be in my video.
Mic check.
Paul. We're back on.
Hey, we're back on. There it goes.
Well, this one's public now, so this one we'll be able to spread to the masses.
Awesome. Before we get deeper into it, I'm going to invite a couple people myself.
Oh, go ahead.
Especially since it's public now, since we can do that for this one.
Yeah, dude, share the link everywhere. That's the real journey, bro. Failures lead to success. That is the journey.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Failures are kind of funny though, man. It's like, you know, I used to get so hung up on like failing, on whether or not to try. I'd like quit before I tried. And then I started seeing failures as kind of funny. Because when you really look back at all the things you failed at, you're like, man, I was fucking stupid.
Well, dude, our failures are what, like what your friend just said, like what Joseph Scott just said, that's the real journey. Failures lead to your success. You know, you're a martial artist, Cal. And in the world of martial arts, we only learn through our supposed failures, right?
Yep.
You learn more from losing a fight than you do necessarily from winning the fight.
Yep.
You know, and every time that you don't perfect that board break or that kick is just you stepping closer towards perfection.
Yep, that's 100% true. And then you know when you're going to break that board and you miss, like you know mentally like where you're messing up at. Like right when you miss, like you know what's flashing in your mind. You're like, oh, I'm blocked by this kind of limitation. Okay, that means I gotta go fix this and then come back and try again.
Something in my confidence, something in here, or maybe it's a hip motion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And those kinds of blockages, those blockages that are subconscious, are the kinds of things that in magic we're trying to remove and to clear up.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So I think we got a good audience now, man. So brother Paul, let's crack this up, man. So you know, I want to let you know just before we get started, like you're a big inspiration for me. We're both fitness wise, martial artist wise. You know, I actually love what you do, man. And how we met on the path is just crazy. Like knowing that you're a trainer and you know, it's cool to be able to connect with somebody even from Austin and like know we got so much in common. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, man. Like what's led you on this path of like magic, mysticism? I know you run your own martial arts program in school. Like what's gotten you to this point, like to where you're educating the masses and inspiring people?
Well, thanks for the humble introduction. You know, we're all students in this game, right? As far as major influences in my life, let's start off with like when I was 5 years old, seeing my brother being a martial artist and studying Taekwondo. It's something that I always wanted to be involved in as well. You know, I started training in karate. I think it was Kempo karate originally, as young as I could. And that was my first exposure to like real discipline, you know, and goal setting, goal achieving. Studied martial arts my whole life in a variety of systems. And I think that did a lot for teaching self-discipline, self-control, perseverance, indomitable spirit, as well as the classical virtues like courtesy, modesty, integrity, et cetera, et cetera. And I think martial arts is something that we should get all of our children involved in. You know, martial arts, something involved with music, and then reading. As far as the mystical path and the magical path, I was blessed at a very young age to have this teacher for a gifted program. Her name was Mrs. Roth, and I'm convinced that this lady is a full-blown like Wiccan at this point. I was blessed to have her for 4 years straight, from third grade all the way to sixth grade, and those are formative years in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So I had her during those 4 years, and basically 2 hours a day for gifted programs. And because of that, we were able to change our curriculum and not just do like the standard Arizona curriculum. Uh, as long as we did well on our standardized tests, she was able to teach us anything. So we spent all of third grade studying Greek mythology, but not just studying Greek mythology, but doing plays. Like I have videos
Wow.
in third grade with a gold crown and a gold cape, dressed as
Dude.
Jupiter at the equinox of the gods. And
Dude, that's
third grade, we're doing
cool.
the equinox. The god of wind, the god of rain, the god of water, et cetera, are coming before you and saying, I'm the most important. No, I'm the most important. And as Jupiter, you create the seasons, the equinox. And then in fourth grade, the same teacher had us do the exact same thing with Roman mythology. So now, by fourth grade, you're comparing Greek and Roman. And then in fifth and sixth grade, we spent 2 years studying the Seven Chronicles of Narnia of C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis can definitely get kind of fundamental Christianity sometimes, but he's generally considered a mystical Christian. And so basically by sixth grade, we had studied Greek, Roman mythology, and Christian mysticism. Like you're all well on the track of comparative religion, right? So I just never stopped. Middle school, I got into Wicca because that's what you do when you're in middle school, right?
In middle school, you got into Wicca?
Yeah, middle school, got into Wicca.
Damn.
Picked up Laurie Cabot's book, The Power of the Witch, the old pink book, pink paperback. That book, and also Raymond Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, the big blue one. And those two books like set me off, man. I just started reading everything I could on various religions. Started doing opening by watchtower ceremonies from Raymond Buckland, which is a Golden Dawn ceremony I later learned. And just never stopped. All through high school, got into American Transcendentalism and reading people like Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend when I was like 18. Her uncle was a Freemason. And that's where things really went up to the next level. So her uncle was a Freemason. And just talking to him, I realized that joining a fraternity and a secret society, so to say, such as Freemasonry, was going to be my next step. I went to school. I went to school and majored in religion for a while, majored in philosophy, but I just found that the academic world was not where I wanted to be for my spiritual path. I think it's somewhere where perhaps older I could go back and do that now, but still not interested in the academic world. And I discovered that I wanted to be a part of practice, and doing actual practice is not just studying and writing lectures and dissertations, things like that, but I want to be doing the practice. I want to be having the mystical experience,
Yeah.
right? We're here because we're all trying to experience something. We're all trying to connect with God or the divine or people around us or nature, whatever we might call it in our initial drive. And I felt that through secret societies such as Freemasonry, I could find that outlet. So through the Masonic Lodge, I got initiated when I was 21. Through the Masonic Lodge, I met one of my main mentors and initiators, who got me into the Golden Dawn, which is a high grade shoot off of Freemasonry, and they teach things like Hermeticism, ceremonial magic, alchemy, Rosicrucianism, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
And then through that organization, I ended up finding contacts to all kinds of other things out there, from Martinism to Gnosticism and the French Gnostic Church, to laboratory alchemy, inner alchemy, Reiki attunements. I'm a Reiki master as well. Just et cetera, man. Like the world of esotericism is a giant rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I call Freemasonry the gateway drug. But that's not the only way in. There's a million ways in, and hopefully tonight we can talk about some of those paths of esotericism and pitfalls to avoid, and how they might cater to one or the other individual.
Okay, so I would like to go back to the point real quick, because when you said when you got into masonry, it shot you to a different level. And the reason why I want to go back to that point, because I felt that same way when I was studying book after book. I was doing my own meditations, and then you just hit this wall, right? Like where the experience ends. Like you quit having this experience, and then all of a sudden you're learning all this stuff. You're like, what am I learning this for? And then Masonry, right when I got into Masonry, it was just like everything just changed. So in your opinion, like aside from the brotherhood stuff, what about Masonry completely shifted the direction of like how your studies were going and experience and stuff?
So Masonry, just to be clear, Masonry can be a lot of different things. For some people, it's a fraternal organization. For some people, it's a charitable organization. For others, it's just a good old boys club. But it can also be the storehouse for practical esotericism and occultism. We live in a relatively free time, but as early as recent as the 1940s, 1945, you had Masonic lodges and masters getting dragged out in the street by the Vichy and the Nazis, the Gestapo, and having a gun put to their head saying, "Give us your member lists." And when they didn't do it, boom. A guy to look up is Constant Chevillon. He was a Martinist master that happened to him in France from the Gestapo and the Vichy. So Masonry at its ideal, in my opinion, at its ideal, should be a storehouse for all sorts of esotericism, spirituality, comparative religion, occultism, etc., etc. It should be a place where the traditions of Egypt, alchemy, Hebrew Kabbalah, Christian mysticism, the Knights Templar, ceremonial magic, etc., etc., where all those traditions should be able to find a safe haven to be taught and practiced. And Freemasonry has served that role for several hundred years where, when we are under certain political regimes or religious governments where you couldn't express that you were involved in these things without being burned at the stake, places like Masonic lodges were safe havens to be able to teach these things behind closed doors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So in Freemasonry, I found people like me that have this interest in comparative religion. And like you said, I had been reading books on Gnosticism, tarot, Hebrew Kabbalah, et cetera, but I got to a point where I couldn't go anywhere else beyond my own knowledge.
Yep.
And my meditations were capped, like I hit the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it kind of becomes mental masturbation at a point.
Yeah, it does.
Like,
then you're stroking that ego, right? You're just stroking that. I'm just gonna keep learning. I'm just gonna keep learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep learning facts and figures. But where's the transformation? Where's the practicality, right? So the transformation of practicality, I'm not saying Masonry gave that, but it was a gateway toward things that did that for me.
Yep.
So I'd say that Masonry was a gateway into the esoteric world. And then I realized that there truly are societies and places for individuals with the questions I have to have them answered by your own heart and your own practices. That makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Now we're going to gateways. So just like you said, Masonry is not the only gateway. There's tons of gateways, right? Into getting into these sciences. So let's go into the various gateways and how people can get exposed to more of this kind of knowledge. Because like I said, once you're on your own, it's like you hit that ceiling. It doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna hit that ceiling. Where are the different gateways that people can go to?
So, I mean, first of all, why would we want to practice spirituality in groups in the first place, right? First of all, by joining an organization or working with individuals who tread this path before you, we can assist each other, right?
Yeah.
I can be like, hey, Cal, here's some pitfalls to avoid when you're doing this operation. Or, hey, here's when you're in this grade, here's some things to watch out for, here's things to focus on.
Yep.
So we literally have someone that's done the path before us to help us along the way. A brother, a friend, a mentor at sometimes. And then the other thing is that you have a tradition. You have a foundation that gives you a system to work through. And any system you join or any order should have a clear-cut A, B, C, D, and they should know what Z is. They should be able to tell you right off the bat why they exist, what they're there for, and what they're going to give you. If they can't give that to you or they won't tell you what they're doing or why they're doing it, you're not joining an organization or a spiritual order. You're joining a cult. Like a cult, C-U-L-T, not occult. And that's one of those big pitfalls to watch out for. There's a lot of cults out there, man. There's a lot of mind control things that happen. And any organization should be about freeing yourself, about teaching you how to find your own truth, not about just indoctrinating you into their beliefs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And this is the problem with like organizations like Scientology or Latter-day Saints, et cetera, is they don't want to tell you where they're going. They don't want to tell you their sources. They don't want to tell where they're going, what they're teaching you. And that should be a major red flag. You know, other red flags are if an organization tells you to disavow your family or change your personality or shave your head, you know, unless it's like, just whatever. You know, the thing is, we've been through some of those things. Me and my people, we've gone through all kinds of organizations and seen some really good and some really bad. So I just want to get that out in front, you know.
Right.
But there's a million kinds of organizations out there, and I think what's important when you're picking a spiritual path is to find out what resonates in your heart. You know, what works for you. What are your natural inclinations? And that's part of why I think it can be a little misguided for Westerners to dive too deep into Eastern traditions, such as like Mahayana Buddhism or Hindu Tantra, or et cetera, et cetera. Not that those things are bad or you can't do it. It's just that it's not your culture.
Yeah.
You know, it's not in your subconscious. It's not in your collective subconscious, your personal subconscious. You haven't been raised with it. It's not in your DNA. You know, as Westerners, whether you identify with Christianity or not, Judeo-Christian ideals and motifs and symbolism permeates the entirety of our culture. It's been there for 2,000 years. It's been the ruling power. And that's a whole another topic. But it's something that's in our DNA. So I think it's important to recognize what you're naturally drawn to and go and seek that out.
Okay.
So you know, you can go and the ultimate spiritual tradition transcends religion, right? Religion, in my opinion, is an exoteric or a lower level manifestation of spirituality. It can be like a gateway drug again. But eventually, we have the thing in Martinism. There is only one religion because there is only one truth. And no sect, no creed, no organization may abrogate the exclusive possession of this one and only truth. Because truth cannot be owned. Truth is truth, right? And all these organizations, all they are is different ways of trying to find that one truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see. So it's basically just different paths going in the same direction. And it's based on your own essence, right? Like who you are and where your heart led you is going to take you down that same path going to the same direction. Okay.
The voie cardiaque, the way of the heart. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's like the saying, all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
Or in Buddhism, the saying that there's 1,000 doors to the Dharma.
Yep.
You know, there's 1,000 ways to get to the teaching. And any one of those ways coming from all around, million different access points and entry points that are all totally individuated, but they all come to one center, right? One point in the center. It's a joke, but not a joke.
All right, well, let's break it down then, because I know there's a lot to cover in this. So let's go.
So there's a million things out there. Let's just cover some of the main ones, you know. So like I got one of my first traditions I started off with was Wicca, and you know, witchcraft is awesome. There's so many versions out there. If you go over to the old world, to Europe, you still have family traditions, Italian witchcraft traditions, French, et cetera, English, where it's literally a family passing down a bloodline of witchcraft, of family teachings, of herbology, of spiritism, of working with familiars, et cetera, working with the land. But the thing about that kind of witchcraft is you're not going to get involved in it unless you're already involved in it, unless it's in your heritage or in your community. The kind of witchcraft most people get involved in nowadays, especially in America, is Wicca, or some filtration down from Wicca. And like I got my start there when I was 13 as well. But we have to understand that Wicca was created in its modern form in the 40s, 50s by Gerald Gardner. And Gerald Gardner was a student of Aleister Crowley. He was a second-degree member of the OTO who was kicked out of the OTO because of his unruly character and because he basically jacked the system and created Wicca.
I see.
You know, but he didn't have the full system. He wasn't a master in the OTO. He wasn't a master in the AA. He was even in like the smaller organization of Crowley's, not even in the AA. And this individual is the one that created Wicca. So he didn't really have the full teaching in the first place anyways. I think Wicca can give us a great nature tradition to work with. It can show us how personal spirituality works. But as far as an organization bringing you to what I call the world's secret, or the philosopher's stone. I just don't see that necessarily happening. And again, I'm not trying to blackball anyone that's involved in those things. If you have an awesome tradition, please share it on the Heyoka so we can see your magical Wiccan tradition as well. But a lot of people might consider Wicca to be low magic in the sense that it's earth-based, right? It's elemental-based.
Yes.
It's all about the basic elements of earth, air, water, and fire, and spirit. But it doesn't necessarily go transcendental.
Mm-hmm.
I focus more on the Hermetic traditions, the Rosicrucian traditions, Masonic traditions, etc. Let's say that let's just talk about a few of those. So Hermeticism is a tradition that comes down from ancient Egypt. Hermes Trismegistus, who is renowned as being the so-called, the books, the Hermetica, are named after him. And it basically distills the comparative religion of Egypt, the ceremonial magic, their rituals and talismans, and their alchemy into a tradition that is filtered down through the Renaissance and the alchemical traditions, filtered down through Freemasonry, and eventually was born in organizations such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is one of the first complete magical systems. It was founded in 1888 by high-grade Freemasons who basically were sick of the fact that Freemasonry had become at that point a social club.
Yep.
It wasn't giving the spiritual practice and transformation they were looking for. So Westcott, Woodman, and Mathers, three of the highest Masons in Europe at the time, in England, founded this order called the HOGD, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And if you're interested in that, look up the Sodalitas Rosicrucis. I'll post some links after that in the comments. But this organization brought together an initiatory system based on the Hebrew Kabbalah, which is the mystical tradition of the Jews. So we're talking, thousands of years of tradition right there through Judaism, through the Torah, through through all the midrashes, through the Sefer Yetzirah, through that entire rabbinical tradition. They also brought together Hermeticism and Egyptian traditions. They brought together inner alchemy as well as laboratory alchemy. They manifested it all through an initiatory system based on Freemasonry. The great thing about initiatory systems is they give you a clear, like I said, A, B, C, D. You do A, you do B, you do C, you will get this result. Okay?
I see.
And they also brought together elements of Christian mysticism and Rosicrucianism, which we could do an entire hour on every single one of these words I'm saying. Okay, we're going to glaze over a lot of stuff.
I know, bro.
Rosicrucianism is essentially this tradition that was founded from some anonymous pamphlets that were published in Europe in 1614, 1616, and 1618. They were published anonymously and dispersed all throughout Europe, and they completely just tore down the old regime. They're very much responsible in some ways for the Reformation and for the fact that the Catholic Church is not the major political power of the world today.
Wow.
The Rosicrucians, the name Rosy Cross, their symbol is that of a rose cross. So it's literally a cross with a rose, or in this case, a sun on it. Okay? A cross with a rose. You can visualize it being a golden rose cross. Usually I do this in PowerPoint, so I'd have visual aid. But and that image, the cross represents you. The gold cross represents you as the perfected man or woman, regenerated in the cross, with the rose of your heart blossoming and coming forth, the sun enlightened within you. We talk about Jesus Christ being the Son of God. Well, S-O-N and S-U-N, literally the Son of God as well as the child of God. And the goals of all of these traditions is to have that epitomal experience of the Christification. The Christ is a title. It's not a name. It's a title. It's a title gained through work by the process of Christification or christening. Like that's even the term in the church, christening.
Yeah, I see. That's cool.
And if you look at the Catholic Church, they have these traditions of baptism, confirmation, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of them is called the chrism, and it's literally being anointed. and Christ became the Christ through the anointing of St. John. But that's a whole other thing. So that tradition, the Golden Dawn, basically brings you through a very heavy intellectual, very heavy ceremonial magic tradition. It requires reading of dozens or hundreds of books. It requires thousands of hours of meditation and ritual and practice and contemplation, putting on funny robes and drawing pentagrams in the air and screaming names at the wall. But it is a truly magical system, and it will fuck your mind up and bring you to a new place.
Yeah, because when you say initiatory system, it's funny because you say it so like you just flow into the next word. But when people really understand how powerful that is, like an initiatory, so when you get initiated into something, that is a transformation that happens. That is not just like, oh yeah, you're in the club, what's up? It's like an actual transformation that happens right there on the dot as the initiation's occurring. Now, I only speak from my personal experience being a Mason and all. But yeah, those experiences are powerful.
And you're a master Mason.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and initiation, just the concept of initiation. There's been so much written about this in the history of the world. This is a book that we should post this on Heyoka that I think that every person should get. It's by Manly P. Hall. It was published, I think, in 1921 or something like that. It's called The Secret Teachings of All Ages. The subtitle is The Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, Rosicrucian, and Symbolical Philosophy. It's a mouthful, right? It's a very large book. You want to get the right one. You want to get the oversized version. And it's full color. There's a picture of Comte de Saint-Germain.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And, oh, dude, this book is gorgeous. It runs about $95 for a new edition, but it's worth every penny, man. And this book basically takes you through what we're trying to do tonight, which is it takes you through every single tradition, from Native American shamanism to Hebrew Kabbalah to Gnosticism to alchemy to Rosicrucianism, ceremonial magic, just all of it. And it's not deep into them, but it gives you a chapter on each one of those traditions. So you at least have a foundation of knowledge. I'm very keen on the fact that one of my goals is to make people educated of spiritual organizations so they can make educated decisions. You know, people join organizations like the Mail Order AMORC or Mail Order TMO or BODA or whatever because they don't know anything else that's out there. Because those are the ones spending dollars advertising. You know?
Yeah.
Books like this can get you educated on these traditions. And, you know, at the Masonic Lodge, for the past 10 years, we've had this organization going, this group, that we do a book club of this book. And once a month, we meet and read one chapter. We literally just sit down and read a chapter together and talk about it for over about 3 hours. And it's just been the coolest thing for people because you get to talk about all these traditions, you know? And actually, that'd be a great idea for a
podcast. That is a good idea, man. Because that stuff can blow your mind.
Yeah, initiatory systems. And initiation's been around for forever. You know, Plato was initiated in the ancient Greek mysteries. You look at Pythagoras and his initiations. One thing that the ancient Greek philosophers said about the people who went through initiations, the initiates, is that despite if they went through God A or God B or whoever's tradition, is that if they did it, they all lost the fear of death.
That's awesome.
Okay?
Yeah.
They all lost the fear of death. And that is because they found, yes, Jeremy Campbell, we'll post some stuff on Heyoka about that. They lost the fear of death because they found true life. And they found light. They found deity. They found what we call the world secret. So let me jump in real quick about the Rosicrucian thing we were just talking about. 1 second. So with that, one of these organizations, Hermeticism, the Golden Dawn, I recommend an order called the Sodalitas Rosicrucis. Okay? And it is because, first of all, I'm a little partial. It's the first organization that came through. But they say, let's say here, why are we exist? we bring together the main esoteric streams and movements within the Western Hermetic tradition under the apothegm of the Rosicrucian ideal, as stated in the Fama, that's the 1614 document I mentioned, the Confessio, the 1616 document, a brotherhood, working in secrecy, focused on the sincere inner development of its members, thereby affecting the world at large without interest of financial gain. I mean, there you go, dude. I don't even need to read the rest, right?
That's beautiful.
But they say that the name, the SRC at SSA, is actually the name of two orders. The first, the SRC, Sodalitas Rosicrucis, translates to the Secret Society of the Rose Cross, representing the Rosicrucian flavor of the magical and mystical processes that lead the candidate, you, into full contact with what we call the Holy Guardian Angel. And I'm sure everyone has some conception of what that means. Your higher self. The second, the Sodalitas Solis Alatae, translates to the Secret Society of the Winged Sun. It indicates the alchemical work the adept is then ready for. Within these two orders, the magical work and initiations of the Golden Dawn, the Alpha and Omega, and the Rose Rubae and Are Crucis, the mystical work and initiations of Christian theurgy, and the alchemical work of the Royal Path integrates into a coherent system of personal unfoldment and development, where every step follows the next in a clear and consistent way. So that's what I'm talking about as far as an organization that can tell you what they're about, why they're here.
Yeah. And I heard, did you say it has mystical, you said something about mystical and magical? So
Yes.
It's combining like the mysticism, and then magical stuff as well in that society you're talking about?
Yeah. So, and, I think most of the more mature organizations these days are combining both the mystical and the magical. Aleister Crowley founded his AA, Art from Astrum, back in the early 1900s, and he had a mystical and a magical bend to it. The SRC has a mystical and magical bend. Our Martinist order, the Order Martinis Souverain, has mystical and magical bends. I would say that those are the two pillars that raise you to adepthood. Magic being the projective, masculine, right arm, masculine, projective, creative. That's the part that's the aspect of the work where you're like visualizing pentagrams in front of you and you're screaming names, you're invoking spirits and doing things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's really projective and dominating and commanding spirits. But that's only half the work. After you do all those things, after you bring a spirit into your sphere, after you evoke or invoke something, you then have to listen to it, right? You have to actually have it come into your heart and make change occur. Aleister Crowley defined magic as the art or science of causing change to occur in conformity with the will. So we will something into being. We invoke a thing. Let's say, like, I need to manifest. Hey, Blake, good to see you on here. Let's see, I need to manifest physical fitness. Blake. Then you're going to invoke Mars. You're going to invoke energy, will, the god of war, right? And through the god of war, you're going to be motivated and jacked up to go do some exercise, right? So you invoke that force, and then you go out and actually work out. You don't just wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
Let's say we're getting transcendental, and like you're meditating on why is it that I have this neurosis that I get jealous of my girlfriend when she hangs out with person X, right?
Yeah.
So you might invoke something and go through a ritual to bring that spirit in, but then you're going to sit down and meditate, right? And you're going to go into a mystical state of reception. You're going to let that spirit talk to you. You're going to let the light talk to you and bring up in your heart what that issue is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Okay.
So magic you could define as the process of bringing God down, of invoking light, of filling ourselves up so much with light that we essentially explode in light. And that's how we find God. Okay? Whereas mysticism, you can define as reducing everything.
Okay.
And removing everything. Instead of adding things, instead of bringing light to us, we're actually silencing everything. We're cutting things off. We're getting quiet. we're going darker and darker and darker into the silence until all that remains, there's nothing left but God.
Ah,
Does that
I
make sense?
see. Well, it's like the blend between Eastern and Western thought as well, you know, because you got the Eastern mystics. It's all about letting go of attachments, letting go of things, and then the Western thought is that creativity, that will, that kind of passion, that objectivity.
And
It's like,
academia. Yeah.
yeah,
And I agree with you, and that's how most people view the East and the West. But that's also limited because the East is just as intellectual, just as magical and convoluted as the West is. Like you
ah,
really get into Hinduism and Vajrayana Buddhism, man, you're talking about thousands of gods and deities and rituals and like all kinds of rules and regulations. It's just as convoluted as Catholicism or voodoo or anything else.
I
So
see.
just to be clear.
I appreciate
But yeah,
that.
the rational Western mind versus the emotional Eastern mind. You can say the rational mind is magic, intellectuality, studying things, hierarchies, names, histories. Whereas the emotional mind is more about receptivity, right? Intuition, silencing. Through that silence, finding the center.
Ah, okay. I see. So that way you are creating equilibrium between the two as you
Yes,
are.
totally. Two
Ah,
pillars and they meet in the center, which is your heart.
okay.
So the Golden Dawn, I recommend for people who are who have the willpower and the interest to read a lot and who are basically geeks. Like if you want to geek out and like study all aspects of Western magic and tarot, divination, geomancy, et cetera, then that's your gig. But not everyone wants to do that, right? So some people want a more simple path. And if you want a more simple path, that is where Martinism comes in. Named after a guy, Louis Claude de Saint Martin, who's known as the unknown philosopher. Unknown meaning he didn't sign his name in his books originally. Like he took his ego out of it. He put a mask on, right? He was a French philosopher in the 1700s, and he taught what's called the way of the heart. And the way of the heart is more purely about that mystical end of entering into yourself. And in there, finding deity. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to find a quote for you. Okay? What are you thinking? You liking this so far, Cal?
Oh, dude, I'm loving it, man. Dude,
On track?
I eat this stuff up, dude. I can listen to you talk all day. Well, it's cool. It's cool to know people like you and like Alex because it's good to just sit back and just observe and just listen and just know there's other people out there in the world like this that are on this different path. Because it's hard to find people like this, right? Like in your everyday life,
Yes,
you're
sir.
not just gonna run across them. You literally have to be in the state.
Yep. And have it. There's a saying: when the student is ready, the master will appear. And I think that in my life, my initiator appeared when I was ready,
Yep.
and it transformed my life in every way. And I would have nothing else but that. So this comes from. We're going to jump to a different tradition called Martinism, and this is from an order called the Order Martiniste Souverain. Martinism.net. They're also on Facebook. We'll post some links later. But this is an organization that is based a little more tightly upon Freemasonry, and it was founded on high-grade Freemasonry, but just like we were saying with the Golden Dawn, they were finding that there was not the practical aspect of it. This organization was founded 200 years earlier, though, 1760. So this has been around for almost 300 years now.
Wow.
Uh, here's a quote by Saint Martin. The only initiation which I advocate and which I look for with all the ardor of my soul is that by which we are able to enter the heart of God within us and there make an indissoluble marriage which makes us the friend, the brother, and the spouse of the repairer. The repairer meaning the Christ. There is no other way to arrive at this holy initiation than for us to delve more and more into the depth of our soul and to not let go of the prize until we have succeeded in liberating its lively and vivifying origin.
Hmm.
Another phrase from him is, The object of man on earth is to employ all of his rights and powers of his being in rarefying, as far as possible, the intervening media between himself and the true sun, so that the opposition being practically none, there may be a free passage. The rays of light may reach him without refraction. So even though this isn't taking a hermetic angle, it's about making it so the light of the sun, Tiferet in the Kabbalah, Jesus Christ in Judaism, in Christianity, the Messiah in Judaism, the Buddha in Buddhism, Arjuna, or not necessarily Arjuna, but like, what's the term in Hinduism? The Atman in Hinduism.
Atman, yeah.
Total, so that it can shine through us and we can become it, right? Become a man, a god on earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, more than it makes sense, I could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel it when you said it. So
It stirs something emotionally in you when you hear truth.
Yeah, you could feel that. It was very direct and to the point. Like, this is the path we're going down. Like, this is it. Very narrow. And it's funny because we get
and you bring up something great right there about feeling it, because though there might be times in initiatory processes where you intellectually are confused or it's challenging, it's scary, you know in your heart whether or not you're doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, if there's a point where you're like, this is wrong, this is like evil, then like, get the fuck out, right? But the thing is, you know in your heart when truth speaks to you that this is right and this is what you should be doing.
Yep. Yeah, and that's another thing is, like, we have to disseminate, like, what is really fear? What is really fear? And what's on the other side of that is
and are you fearing only because of societal programs? Or are you fearing, is it a real fear? Because societal programs, most of those are bullshit. You need to just get over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like half the things we fear, like with occultism and spirituality, it's like, oh no, they have robes. They're going to be Satanists. They're going to like sacrifice babies. Like, that's all just ridiculous. And it doesn't even exist. Like, that doesn't happen. I mean, it probably happens with like Hillary Clinton and the Bilderbergs, but that's a whole different thing. But ooh, I shouldn't have said that. But as far as like secret societies, you're not gonna be like worshiping Satan all of a sudden out of nowhere. If we have a real fear, generally a lot of times it's our own emotional constructs, right? Like, we're fearing facing a part of ourselves, as Carl Jung called it. We fear facing our shadow. And when we come to the other end of it, we find a liberation we didn't even know existed. Like, there's a promised land we didn't know existed, right?
Yeah.
Did I lose you? Yeah, cool.
No, you're still on. It's awesome.
So, Martinism is a path that is a little more inward, the way of the heart, though it can also have a lot of ceremony magic as well. I generally recommend that for people who don't have the interest in studying like Egypt and Chaldea and et cetera. They just want to go straight to it. I consider Martinism a more direct path. Doesn't mean it's better, just more direct. And I generally recommend that to people who are Christians or Jews, because it naturally fits their symbol set, what they were growing up with, in general. Whereas the Golden Dawn is better for someone who's like, if you're into Wicca, you're into, so-called alternative paths. The Golden Dawn will cater to that a little more strongly.
Yeah.
And then for the people who, both those organizations work in groups. For the people who want to be individual and don't want to work in a group, they want to be totally solo, they just want to get initiations and do their work, there's a group called the AA, founded by Aleister Crowley. The Argentum Astrum is one meaning of the AA.
Yeah.
The AA is basically a Golden Dawn style system, but it's completely one-on-one. You'll only ever meet your initiator. And in the initiations, the other officers will have not just masks, but entire hoods on their head. You'll never know who that person is. You'll never meet them. Never.
Wow, that's crazy.
You'll never meet anyone except your initiator. Yeah. It's a completely one-on-one system. And for people who either live very far away from an operating temple or don't want to work with a group, the AA can be a very good path to follow. And then beyond that, there's Gnostic traditions. You can pursue ordinations in the Gnostic Church, which I'm a Gnostic bishop, and with that, that means that not only am I a bishop in the French Gnostic tradition, but I have lineage in the Catholic Church. Sounds kind of weird, right? Yeah, but you can pursue just a purely Christian path through studying alchemy and theosophy and Gnosticism, and you can attain the truth through that way. Or you can go Eastern ends, and you can go study Buddhism and Hinduism. But the thing is, most people in the West, when they study those things, they only do it cursory. If you're going to do it, go take empowerments. Go find a lama, become their disciple, take empowerments, and go probably spend some time in a monastery for a while.
Yep.
And go do Vipassana on a regular basis. Don't just call yourself a Buddhist because you read a book.
Well, there's this guy I really look up to. His name is Jay Shetty. He makes a lot of good inspirational videos. I think you've probably seen him on Facebook and stuff. Jay Shetty. He makes all these like motivational stuff. But that's what he did, man. He left. He was in college. He left to a monastery across the country. He lived there. And then when he came out, he lived the Vedas. Like he lived the Vedas. Like for a lot of these, especially Eastern traditions, like you gotta live that shit. Like it's not just like I'm a study.
You can live any of these traditions.
Yeah.
Any of this has to go beyond mere mental masturbation and ego gratification. You have to live the symbols. You have to enliven it. Otherwise, it has to impregnate your sphere, your soul, your psyche. Otherwise, the transformation can't occur.
Yep.
And there's a big thing that in the age of internet occultism, and silence is a big thing as well. That doesn't mean we can't talk about our spiritual practice or like promote organizations, but like we have to understand that in the end, the truth, I can't tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You can't tell him the truth. No one can give another person enlightenment.
Yep.
It's impossible. That's not the way it works. The Buddha said, everyone has said that. Enlightenment can only be gained from you yourself doing the work.
Yep.
And it has to be an organization that can actually teach you the work to do. But you can only find it within yourself. And there's a phrase. Actually, let's just say from John 1, from the Bible, New Testament. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was with God in the beginning. In him was life, and this life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, but the darkness comprehendeth it not. That phrase is very similar to another phrase that Lord of the light and the darkness. The light shineth in the darkness, but the darkness comprehendeth it not. Only in silence, the Lord who manifests in silence and whom not but silence can express. Only silence can express God, because the moment we start putting even the word God, right, it's just a convenient word. The moment we start putting labels on it, we limit the Godhead, right? And divinity, if it's limited, it's no longer divinity, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So right away, we're blaspheming what the light is, what the truth is. Therefore, we can't tell it to you. It has to happen through your own meditations, in silence, in the silence of your heart. But all we can do is hopefully just give you some pointers, some guidelines.
Yeah, and then as you're going, express. Find a way to express it in art and music. And as that's the best way. Stories.
Love.
Telling stories.
Make children.
Yeah, making children. Like, I mean, that's really it. Once you do get in this state, it's not even about telling people. You don't want to tell any. There's no point. Because
no, you live it.
You live it. Yes.
It's not about preaching. It's about living it, being the example.
Yes. Exactly.
And without the ego bullshit. Like that's the problem with yoga nowadays. I'm a yoga instructor. my lady's a yoga instructor. But dude, I hate the yoga community.
Oh shit.
I absolutely hate the yoga community. It's just so egotistic. It is so fucking full of itself. It's not honest, like Amy said. It's not honest.
Yep.
It's
that spirit. It's that spiritual.
Man. And that's what I mean by like silence. Is like yogis are running around everywhere. Oh, I just did this workout, and I'm so aware. And 99% of the time it's bullshit, dude. Usually when someone is on the internet talking about their attainments, it's their ego talking, not an actual attainment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
And
that.
that's why we meet in small groups. And yeah.
Well, and that's why we got to be really careful, right? Like we're in an age right now where spirituality is becoming like worldwide accepted, like alternative
And
spirituality.
we're free right now to do that.
Yes, yes, but
For
that's
now.
also a problem because then we run into these ego traps, these various ego traps, these kind of spiritual one-upmanship that a lot of people get involved in.
Yes, and as Amy says, spiritual pop spirituality blows up.
Mm-hmm.
It's rampant, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like shit like The Secret. You ever read the book The Secret?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're less about like what traditions teach, more about like what to watch out for.
Yeah.
You know, these pop spiritual movements, they can be great. You know, the Da Vinci Code turned me on to a lot of things.
Yeah, that was.
You know,
good.
but
That
don't
was a
take
good.
the Da Vinci Code at face value. Yeah, let it turn you on that there's something beyond the Catholic Church, but don't take for face value that Christ had a baby with Mary Magdalene and that's the real secret. Like it's blind.
Like you saw some porn, but you should still have sex with real women. Like that's like a real thing. Like, like don't just keep watching the porn. Like get off the porn. You saw a little bit of it. Now you saw what it is.
Go do it. And the thing is, what I give to anyone interested in spirituality is do it. Yep. You know, you see the LBRP posted, go do it. You know, you see a Buddhist meditation center, go there, check it out. You see a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, go. You know, all the talking in the world will not do anything that an hour of actual practice can do.
Yep.
And regular practice, 10 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, hour a day. Regular practice, just like physical fitness. You know, you don't lift weights 6 hours one day a week. You lift weights 1 hour a day, 6 days a week. Right?
Yep.
Because you're trying to train your subconscious. Your subconscious doesn't get trained in big bursts. It's a constant thing. You could say in all these traditions, all we're doing is leaking our subconscious to our conscious mind. We're taking our unconscious fears, impulses, programmings, bringing them to life, and then choosing to become master of them.
Then you get into this trance state. Then you're in this lucid, like everything you see is like. So for me personally, let's use fitness as an example, right? So me and you are fitness buffs. I see fitness in everything. I don't care if somebody's like cleaning out their house, if they're moving. Like I see fitness in everything because I've taken that.
When you pick that box up, squat with your legs, not your back.
Yeah. But you see it. It's the same thing with spirituality, right? Like when you practice daily, it becomes more lucid, and you see spirituality. You're making matter spiritual. You're seeing everything as spiritual.
You're volatilizing the fixed, as the alchemist would say. The fixed being matter, you're spiritualizing it, volatilizing it. And in every order, you're going to volatilize the fixed. And then once you purify that, you're going to fix the volatile. You're going to make Malkut Keter and then Keter Malkut. This earthly becomes spiritual, then the spiritual become earthly. And then it becomes one.
I see. And then there becomes no
difference between Keter and Malkut. There becomes no difference between heaven and earth. It is just it.
Or as the Tao would say, the way, right?
It's just the way. Exactly.
It's the way.
It is not the masculine, it's not the feminine. It is not the Kian or the Kun. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
We.
All right.
You know, if you're interested in that stuff, dude, you should check out I should give you my karate handbook. Did I give you
I've got a copy, man. I've been reading the I Ching in there, bro.
Yeah, in there it teaches you how your Taekwondo forms are all about the I Ching. And it's all about those 8 classical elements and how to unite them.
Yeah,
so,
dude.
Really good physical meditations to do.
Yeah, man. It's been nice, dude. I really appreciate that. It's a good book, man. It's crazy how your students are learning this stuff. Like, it's wild that we're in this time right now that we can teach all this like this. And it's
magical time, dude. And I really appreciate what you're doing with Heyoka, the idea of bringing together all these different people and just any more outlets we can have to share together, you know, as a community. I'm really going to see if I can make it down there on August 12th for y'all's thing. No promises, but I would love to be there for the LRP class.
Dude, that would be awesome.
I mean, because that is my flyer. I saw that. I was like, yo, they got my shit. But I would really love to be down there, dude. It's at noon, right?
Yeah, so August 12th at 12 p.m. Everybody better be there. Come out, show your support. Donate money
Yep.
to Victoria. She needs it. She needs our healing energy there too. So
Yep.
it's a good
Medical
purpose.
bills.
It's a good purpose, and everybody's going to be learning, and hopefully a lot of lives get shifted, and there's just a
Yep, and we'll
lot
be
going
talking
on.
about this kind of stuff, and then we'll do practice. We'll talk about the 5 classical elements. We'll talk about initiation in the elements, and then we're going to teach people how to create a space where they banish negativity, where they banish external forces, and they can come to their center, to their light, by using divine names, by using the Hebrew Kabbalah, essentially. So hopefully that'll be a good turnout, because that's a really cool idea, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, I think that's it for tonight, Paul. You got anything else, brother? You wanna throw out there before I let you go?
Just everything we talked about, like literally almost every word we said could be an entire session itself. I'm
Yeah.
working. I want to get a podcast going, but I think that I should invest in a proper microphone and maybe a camera or something. But I really want to get a podcast going, so let's keep this discussion going, okay?
Hey, man, I'm
You know?
I'm I'm down, dude. I'm down. And then we got the Heyoka Festival coming up, so we're just gonna bring all this together, man. And we'll
Sweet.
we'll be in Austin coming to see you in October. So
You got it. And then I'm gonna post a bunch of links to some of the things we talked about for people to download. Um, it'll be like a folder on Mega. It's a file sharing site where they can download documents and meditations and stuff like that, and rituals, and
oh,
check
that's
it out.
dope. Hell yeah, I
Yep.
appreciate you. It's
You
badass.
got it, buddy.
Well, thanks so much, bro. I appreciate you, and we will definitely get together
Yep.
soon, man. Have a good night,
LVX,
brother.
man. See you later.
See you later, bro.